Making a career move during uncertain times, especially during inflation, is one of the most difficult things that you can do. It's known whether or not you've made the right decision to move a company. It's whether or not you feel as though you will be stable and confident in your move. And it's whether or not it's fundamentally right for you, the reasons for moving on from a job. Now, this is where I would hope to share my experience, because I've moved around various different times and to different companies. And each of those moves, I've always learned a lesson that I wish that someone had told me and prompted me to consider before I made that jump into another role. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through key things to consider when you are making a career move that will help you along the way. First point is you need to understand your reasons for taking a new job. Are you taking a new job because you're desperate? Because that's never a good position to be in. If you're desperate for a job, you will start accepting anything and applying for everything, which may not be right for you and the journey that you want to take. So you need to sit and think, what position am I in to want a job? Am I being pushed out because of people? Because you should never let because of people you leave a job. If you love the role and it's an environment change, that's the issue, it would be best to address that issue head on at your current workplace. So if it's to do with how you are not being recognized or you're being progressed in your role, sit and speak to your managers, because they may not know how you feel. So sit and speak to them. However, if it's an issue to do with colleagues where you feel as though you're being bullied or undermined in certain things, then again, try and speak to your manager. But if you feel as though your manager is part of the problem and you can handle the problem yourself or the issue, then I would suggest more speaking to that individual involved, because sometimes people are not aware of how they come across, especially in an office setting or in an email. A lot of people can be very blunt and they can be very undermining. But when you get someone on their own outside the office environment where you can sit down, have a coffee, speak to them about how you feel, express your concerns, you'll find sometimes that helps resolve the issue. However, if the issue still has not been resolved, then you can find, okay, perhaps it's time for me to move on. But I would like you to exhaust every option to try and resolve and change your work environment, because what you don't want is to be pushed out of a job when there was no need to be pushed. You could at least try to make a difference, because you never know. You could easily find the same hostile environment in another company, because you don't know. So that's why I would suggest always try and resolve when you can at your current company. The next thing is to consider when you're looking to make a career move is you need to understand your compensation package, understand your market value. And by compensation package, I mean, what is the market paying for your role? What is the average payout, salary or variable pay, which may be bonus or car allowances? What's the standard market pay for your role? So that's very important, because you need to know how to position yourself, and if the role that is being offered to you is worth your while, because it's always good to have that known at the very beginning before you make that move, because you never want to make a move and be paid the same amount or less. Just to share why it's never good to leave for a role that's paying less, is because you can hinder your future progression by taking a role that pays less. Simply because whenever you are ready to move to a new company, every job is currently trying to match or do one up on your current salary. So if you're positioning yourself low, then you leave yourself very little scope or room to be offered more. That is if you're being transparent about your salary or disclosing your salary, which I never suggest that you do. I never suggest that you share your salary with any recruiter or the company itself. Keep that as private as possible. And I may make a video as to why you shouldn't disclose your salary and how you can work around those questions. But make sure that you're leaving for a good salary. Now, the best thing to do to check your salary positioning in the market is to look at job market sites, look at Indeed, CV Library as well. Check to see what the salary is for the area. So the area makes up how much money, how much weighting is put on the salary, and make sure that you know the level of your role, because if you're a management position, that may demand more money. So once you know those things, position yourself really good in advance to not leave to be paid less. Now the next thing is to do around the progression, where you see this role, this next move fitting into your career progression. So for example, is this role that you're taking, is it aligned to where you see yourself going in the next 10 years? Are you on track from being an administrator to being a lead manager or project manager? Is that the route that you want to take? Now I understand a lot of people may not know the blueprint of their career path, and that's why it's so important to know what your senior peers or managers that you look up to or admire, know what journey that they took. And I would suggest looking at LinkedIn to see their career journey and try and match that or mirror it as much as possible. That will help you. So if you're taking a job, always think, how does this align me to get to the next level in my career? That's very important, because you never want to take a job that makes you take several steps back, because again, recruiters look at not only your compensation package to match that, but they also look to see what you're currently doing in your current role to see if that's the suitable step for you. So that's so important to just know your blueprint for your career before you make that move. It's really, really important. Now there's exceptions to that. There's exceptions because there are times when you might take a sidestep just to gain exposure based on working for a particular company. And when you do take those sidesteps, just make sure that you can explain your rationale or your reason for making a sidestep move. If it's to do with getting recognition from a particular company or position yourself better in the market, that would be perfect, a perfect example. I do know a lot of people who would want to work for a big four company, for example, or they'd like to work for a particular tech firm. So if you have those excuses or reasons, then that's valid, that's completely fine. But make sure you know your end goal before you make these multiple jumps. The next thing is, when you're considering taking a new job, this is something that's not really spoken about a lot. I haven't heard it before, but it's so important to understand or get your finances in order to the best of your ability before you make a big career move. Simply because when you have your finances in order, you feel so much more relaxed. You feel at peace knowing that if something happens, you're not just going to be out in the cold, as in you can't pay your bills, you are one paycheck away from being in debt. You don't want to be in that position, because when you are taking on a new job and you're going through your probation period, you don't want that added anxiety of having to really perform because this role depends on it. Because if you sometimes this happens, but sometimes you can go to a new workplace and then you don't even like working there, and you have to take a step back and say, actually, I've changed my mind, I don't want this job. But you need to be in a position where that is a possibility, and you have that safety net to not feel tied down into a job. So I would say make sure your finances are in order. And that means if you have credit card debt, make sure you're consolidating that. If you can also transfer the balance, do a 0% transfer balance to start managing your debt better. Don't just hop from one job to the next, and then if something goes wrong in this financial time where you need stability, you are struggling. Never do that. So that is one important tip. Those are all the things that I would consider, and if I was ever moving a job or changing, it's so important to sit down and take these reflective moments to understand if it's right for you, because you never want to be pushed out of a job, and you don't want to end up leaving a job thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I thought about this, that, and everything else. So yeah, that is definitely the most important thing. Just make sure you just think it through and then you make that step. Now, I hope that you found this video really useful, and if you did, feel free to subscribe. I make videos about lifestyle, money, and career as well. So feel free to subscribe and let me know if there's anything else in the comments that you would consider as well before leaving a job, because it's hard, it's scary, but it's worth it in the end. Think it through and go with what your logics is telling you and how it fits in with your desires and what you want out of your career. So all the best for making those career moves, and I will see you in my next video.